Okay, hey guys, hey Alkalise to Realise family. I'm Gabby Zakara. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching. We're joined with the wonderful Raven of Gaia today. Raven is on an amazing healing mission, helping people tap into the dormant aspects of themselves. She guides them through deep into their inner worlds and really helps them realise their full potential and transform their lives and themselves. She works as like a life coach, helping in all different areas like general life, career, healing, love, anything. She can just really help you delve into the subconscious parts of yourself and understand blocks and help you relieve those blocks. And something that really resonates with me that she believes is that as human beings we can create whatever we want to in this world from the inside out. And I love that because it just means that we already have the answers within us that we need. And Raven's a beautiful soul who can help us find those answers. So Raven, welcome to the Alkalise Realise family. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. That was awesome.
That's okay. Yeah, no, it's amazing what you do. And we were just talking before, like, I'm on my own journey of trying to do my shadow work and stuff, so it's awesome to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I was thinking, could you what is it that you're doing now then? So you do your life coaching, don't you? And you've been doing that for a year now, haven't you, your own business?
I have, yeah. So my own business has been a year. So I do a lot of work on personal and professional development, but I like to integrate and incorporate my spiritual, more shamanic, mystical kind of side into it, and just really bring all of myself into my work with other people, which is basically about like personal and professional development. So many people think, you know, this is just kind of what's coming to mind for me right now with your question, is that so many people think that it's not okay to bring all of themselves into what they do. And for a very long time, I kind of like diluted certain aspects of myself to fit in the box that society gives us of what professional development actually looks like. And, you know, I learned along my journey that it's really what makes me so unique and so able to truly transmit transformation to another human being is when I don't dilute myself and when I bring all of myself. So I kind of integrate. It's interesting because I kind of integrate the shamanic, the spiritual. So I call it spiritual, personal, and professional development all one, because we really are. There is no separation at all. We like to categorize things and separate them into different categories as human beings, but there really is no separation between life, between the subtle realms, and between our profession, what we choose to do in this world. So that's what I kind of work around to, that's kind of a long answer, but that's what I kind of work around with people.
That's awesome. So have you been spiritual like your whole life then? Is this something that's just kind of been recent since you've been doing the self-help? When did you kind of start your spiritual journey?
I love that question. Yeah. So it's interesting because the way I look at it is we're all spiritual. We're all spiritual beings just living in a human body. Because what is spirit really? If we look at what spirit actually is, we're just energy. So we've always all been spiritual. Now, when I started tapping into the subtle realms and tapping into energy and tapping into the different things of what we call spiritual, I actually have always naturally had experiences as a child. I always had experiences of kind of my consciousness moving into different dimensions of existence, and moving around about, different realms, if that kind of makes sense. And, seeing spirits and hearing spirits and different things that are considered a little bit more esoteric. I kind of always had those experiences as a child. And I always knew from an early age, when I was really, really little, that I was here on this planet, that I incarnated into this lifetime to do big work in the world. And I used to walk around saying it and I didn't know what it was. And at some point along the line, I deviated away from that path and kind of started going down a darker path. And really, I got back to it. I got back into the self-development and the spiritual and the, you know, everything that's about personal development and you know, anything that has to do with mysticism and healing and energy work and all of that. I kind of got into it you know, after I hit a rock bottom with the lifestyle that I was living and started realizing that something needed to change. I got into personal development and I went and I started a career actually in the human services field, and I ended up just like not liking it. I'm not a person that's wired to work for other people. And I didn't really realize this at the time because so many people in my life told me that what I need to go do is to work for other people. And, you know, that's just the way to be. And the system is so set up to where so many people are told that they can't actually take all aspects of themselves and put them together into like a service or a business or whatever have you. And so many people are told this, and I believed it for a while. And so long story short, I don't know if this kind of like answers your question. I hope it does. But long story short, I ended up, you know, after a lot of healing of my own that I did, I ended up starting to get into this work and created my own business around it. And, you know, kind of started doing my own thing and, you know, living a life of sovereignty and offering my services to the world. And also, in the same token, you know, continuing my healing process in itself. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, defo. No, that's awesome. Like, it reminds me of myself, the way you were saying that just when you were younger, you always knew, and then you end up veering off the path. And I think a lot of people do, like the people you hang around with or the like places you go and things, you do end up kind of, I found myself coming off the path. And so to come back on and to do the self-work and then for you now to be healing others as well is that's nice. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was thinking, you know, like with the helping yourself and healing yourself and stuff, and what we're saying about the quote that you said, like it's always the inside is like basically a reflection of the outside. Tell the listeners, in case anyone's just not sure about that, like how is it that internally, if you are like in turmoil, then it affects the external as well? Is that too much of a vague
Yeah.
question? Is that okay?
No, that's perfect. Because I love to talk about that because so many of us, we have this illusion that the external world is what affects our internal world, and it does to an extent. It totally does affect our internal world, but the external world doesn't. We're under this illusion, and we're taught that our external world is what determines how we feel inside, and really it does to an extent, but once we become aware that it's actually the other way around, it's actually that from the internal world, from creating evolution and creating the way we want to feel, the way we want to experience everything, the way we think, the way we attuning our energy from the inner world, from the inside out, we actually create our own world. So in other words, like you asked about turmoil, if we are in constant turmoil from, let's say, things that traumatized us as a child, we're operating in the world casually, but we're not realizing that we have been even traumatized at some point as a child or somewhere along the timeline. The inner turmoil that we carry, first of all, we carry trauma in our body, all over our body and our muscles and our bones, everything in our DNA. But that inner turmoil really affects the way we perceive the world. And when the way we perceive the world is affected in such a way, our actions and everything that we create in the world and every single person that we attract to us is going to match the way that we perceive the world, if that kind of makes sense. And our perception, our lens is actually coming from that inner turmoil, from the perception of a wounded child. And I'm just using childhood trauma as an example. It really could be anything. but the perception of a wounded child is where all of our actions come from. So I hope that makes sense, and I could totally like elaborate and dive into that more if you want me to.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense, because I've heard a lot of like people say things like, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are, as we feel. And you know yourself, when you're having a good day, when you feel like you're in a good mood, you look good or whatever, like everything just seems so rosy. And then when you're feeling a bit sad, you just see so much sadness around you. And so the lens that you're looking at life through is based on kind of how you are, isn't it? And not only in a spiritual level, but on a physical level as well. There's so much that you could benefit from just for doing this work and addressing those issues in you. So if I was like looking back at my life, if I didn't have, you know, you were saying like sometimes you can have traumas, you don't even realize you've had a trauma and it's caused something. If I wasn't sure like what I want to work on my shadow side, there's things in my life that aren't right, but I just don't know what it is. What could be like potentially things that I could look at in my life or look for to help me understand what I need to work on?
That's such an interesting question, and I love this because, interestingly enough, it's always the external world that is a reflection of our internal world. So, for example, um, if I am a person, and I'll use an example that is from my life in the past before I healed like a lot of deep wounds. If I'm a person that's always attracting energy vampires, people who are draining my energy, and I just, bad situations are happening, I'm around these people, and I have no idea how I'm attracting them. I have no clue. They're just stealing my energy, and every time I try to make a friend, all these bad things start happening, and it creates this ripple effect of like, things just, have you ever had that where like things just constantly go wrong? Like, and you just can't figure out why.
Yeah.
So if you personally or your audience, anybody who has ever had that, that's what I always look at. And that's just one example of many. It's a very general example. It's an example that happens to a lot of people. And there are more specific examples that I can get into. I just haven't thought of any off the top of my head, but basically, that's what I look to. I look to the external world with people. And I say, okay, and I do this with myself, with clients, with, with anybody. Look to the external world and say, okay, describe your external world to me. Describe your experience. How are you experiencing this? And based on a person's answers, and, you could do this, the audience, of course, and you personally also, anybody can do this for themselves. Look at your external world. If there's a lack of money in your bank account, if there are energy vampires, if there are, no matter what problem you have in your external world, that will determine what's actually going on inside and what you need to fix. So with that energy vampire example, usually that comes from, if you're a person that's attracting a lot of energy vampires, a lot of times, and it's different for everybody. This is, again, a very general example, but it's different for everybody. Like, a lot of times people will need to fix something internally that is even causing them to not be able to discern between a person who is going to drain their energy or a person who is going to fill them up with energy. And there's many different things. So there's many different things that can be, that need to be addressed depending on what is going on externally. But basically, I always tell people to just look at the reflection of their external world, if that kind of makes sense.
And I'd quite like to add as well, reflect. There's some people who kind of have it all, like they literally got all the money, they've got a nice house, they seem to have friends and family, and they still have this kind of void or this feeling like things just, something's not right, or they still kind of have darkness to work on, even if you materially it seems like you got it all. And in those times you could look at, like, say, you're saying like relationships and things, the way that these recurring things happen in your life, like what triggers you and things like that. And in your opinion then, how important are like relationships as just one thing in terms of showing you kind of what you need to work on? Because I've heard of this thing called the 7 mirrors, and it's basically saying that like everyone in your life, reflects something, and there's these 7 different things they can reflect. One might be a reflection of like what you love about yourself. One might be a reflection of what you hate about yourself. One might be a reflection of like what you don't like in other people, and you'd never want to be that. There's all these different types of things that they can reflect back at you. And do you think that relationships are important for doing the self-healing work? Because you can often just feel like you want to just go and isolate instead and hide away and like do it under your bedding, like hid under your cupboard. You want to just like face your demons on your own. But relationships
Yeah.
and actually being around people, it's important, isn't it?
It's very important. Relationships will definitely, absolutely, so important to like reflecting. And relationships is not only with people. Relationships can be like, people have relationships with money, relationships with environment. I know that you're talking about relationships with people, but I just wanted to, that's just kind of what's coming up for me. I wanted to point that out, that everything in life is a relationship. So if you're having a relationship with a certain environment, with money, with you know, other human beings, with, you know, whatever type of relationship. So going back to people, because I know that you're asking about people, going back to people, like that is so important. Relationships with people, and examining unbiasedly how you respond to other human beings, and what your triggers are, or even if they're not triggering you, if they're like making you really happy, you know, how we respond. So let's say that me and you are having a conversation and you say something that really just happens to like piss me off and upset me, and I'm triggered now, right? That is a reflection. It is nothing that we seem to externalize everything. A lot of people do, until they, you know, dive in and do some really deep work with a coach or a healer, like a good coach or a good healer, and, you know, really get to the root of like seeing how we create our own experience. But so many people externalize things, and let's say that you piss me off, you say something, you trigger me, you piss me off, and now I have this conflict with you, but really you're just a reflection for what is kind of going on internally. And that's how relationships can serve us, and they can serve us in a beautiful way also, because they can actually well, first of all, anytime we're triggered, it's a beautiful opportunity to dive in and do the work to see why we're being triggered, and how we can transform that and transmute that into like operating from a more healed space, so that the next time that me and you, let's say for the sake of this example, have a conflict, I'm not as triggered. I'm able to handle that in a way from a healed space. And you know, relationships are so important for that, if that kind of makes sense. They're just so important for showing us what is basically going on and how we are responding to other people.
I love how you said that about relationships with everything, because it's so true. It kind of like opened my mind, like, no, you're definitely right. Like every single thing is just to do with your own interaction with it, and how you kind of like view it and things like that. So once you're like aware of something, say like I've said something, it's pissed you off, and there's a reason behind it. How do you kind of like get to the root then? Like, so it's made you mad, and then you've got to try and figure out why. So is there kind of like, say, 5 root causes that everyone could go, right, is it fear of loss, is it fear of pain, is it fear of being alone, is there 5, is there just one, which is just fear of loss and pain, or is there just like so many, like, is there anything that people could pinpoint?
That's an awesome question. I love that. So it's always coming from some sort of like, if we're triggered, it's coming from some sort of fear. It's really different for everybody, but the one thing I would say is so key is to always take responsibility for your feelings. So for example, I'll give you a really good example. If me and you are having a conversation, and you're like, you know what, Raven, I really don't like what you're talking about, and I don't agree with it, and I can take that one of 2 ways. I can take that, and this is an example of how our internal world, how we can gauge kind of where we're at with our internal world in terms of relationships. So I can take that and say, oh man, Gabby really hurt my feelings. Like I thought she was going to like what I say. and she really just hurt my feelings, or maybe I can get angry at you and start insulting you back and, say all these things. Or I can say, you know what, I really appreciate that Gabby gave me her opinion about what I say, and like, let me see how I can do better next time I speak on a podcast or, just for the sake of the example. And if you take a look at all three examples I just gave of how I responded to that, what that actually shows is what state that I'm in, because we all just respond to our environment, depending on what state. And this is how we create our world. Because let's say I get really hurt and I totally cut you off, and I'm like, I don't want to speak to Gabby ever again, or ever be on her podcast again. Um, you know, then that's it. That's the end of the relationship, and I never reflected anything about myself, at all. But if I say, hey, Gabby, like, why didn't you like what I said? Let's talk about this. Let's see, where can I do better? And now you're giving me feedback. Now I grow. I have an opportunity, even if the feedback is not from you, even if I'm like, you know what, I don't really want Gabby's feedback about why she didn't like the way what I said and didn't agree with it. But let me see how I can grow from this. Let me see it. So it's all about really just responding. And this is where like relationships are so important. People will reflect to us, and it's very important I always like to tell people, because this is what I do personally, I remove my sense of self from myself in order to reflect on myself unbiasedly, without being all on my feelings. And it's okay to have feelings, it's normal to have feelings, but where the growth comes in is when we're able to kind of like remove our sense of self from ourself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think that if you did cut those ties, and if you didn't do the reflection and you just thought, you know what, like you just was stuck in yourself, like stuck in your emotions, you know what, Gabby, I don't want to speak to you ever again, do you think then that the universe will just send you another person to bring up that same thing and you'll never get over it until you actually just face it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's actually in studies of human psychology, our subconscious mind. So we externalize things, and we all perceive them as the universe bringing it to us, but we are the extensions of the universe. We are microcosms of the macrocosm. And so what we do subconsciously, we will actually, when we're traumatized, that's a small trauma. If you hurt my feelings and I'm all in my feelings and I'm like, oh my God, I never want to speak to Gabby again. Yes, I will subconsciously look for another person. And this is all, again, happening on a subconscious level. And this is why we think that the universe is actually sending us a person, which, the universe is. But I'm actually subconsciously looking for another person so that I can heal it. And this has been, if you study psychology, this has been, there's a name for it, and I forget what the name actually is, but this has been actually proven in psychology that we will actually go and seek subconsciously people to heal our experience, so that next time I have another opportunity. And this is where a lot of people repeat cycles with unhealthy relationships and toxic relationships, is when they actually continue, especially with the whole energy vampire thing. They'll actually continue they won't learn from, like, they continue to respond the same way and externalize, okay, this person hurt my feelings, so I'm cutting them off. And they'll externalize and respond the same way. And the pattern continues to come back, because our subconscious mind is literally always looking to repair itself. And our being is designed in a way that it can repair itself. And what it does is it's just trying to heal itself. It's trying to heal the wounds. So it's a very scientific kind of explanation, but it's really interesting, because with the whole thing with the universe bringing us someone, we do attract, the universe does bring us other people, because we emit subconscious signals from it's very fascinating how it actually all works. We emit subconscious signals into our energy fields. And that's where that comes in with like the universe. Actually, it's almost like we're magnets.
Yeah.
That's how I like to kind of explain it to people. Like, we're magnets, our subconscious mind, and you know, we have an electromagnetic field, and we're magnets for whatever it is that is going on in there that we're not even aware of. And it's interesting too, because 95% of our behavior is actually governed by our subconscious mind, and only 5% of it 5% of it is conscious. So we're operating at all times of 5% in just regular consciousness, which is fascinating to me, because that's why it's so important to like dive in and really dive into the realm, the subtle realms, as I like to call it. Because I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent. I don't know if I'm like still answering your question or not,
Definitely.
yeah, cool. So yeah, that's why it's just so important to dive into the subtle realms too, because people don't realize how much is actually going on beneath the surface of our being.
That's amazing. Like, it's one of the things that I've always kind of felt is that I've not always felt it. I've known that we have our higher selves, and I also know we have the ego, and I feel like both of those are like within the subconscious realms. And with you saying that the subconscious is always trying to heal itself, does that mean then that the subconscious mind is the higher self, but the wounds of the subconscious is the ego and the shadow self? And so the subconscious is actually trying to do good. It's trying to make you a better person always. And the shadow self is just the unhealed version, because I've sometimes felt recently like my subconscious is actually against me, because you learn about your negative traits, you learn about these thoughts you've been having and these desires you've been having to, you know, like actually like feeling good when you see someone not really succeeding because it makes you feel better about yourself. You know, those negative things that people have, you see those and then you think, God, is that what lies beneath me? Like, am I actually a bad soul then? Is my subconscious bad and it's against me? But are you just saying then that no, your subconscious is always good and beautiful? It is God, isn't it? It's light or whatever. It's love, and it's only the unhealed parts that you notice in those times.
Yeah, so I like to think of the subconscious mind like so the conscious mind is like the computer, as like we're both in front of a computer right now. And if you sit in front of a computer, you can see all of the, like, we have our Zoom open. I have, you know, a bunch of files open on my computer. I have Google Chrome. I have all the things. But what is behind? If I was a computer programmer, what is behind that? A bunch of zeros and ones. And that's our subconscious mind. This is how I always like to relate it. We're literally, the computers are actually designed based off of how humans kind of operate, and even animals. So that's basically like it's I know it's a very simple answer, but that's basically what it is. Like, the subconscious mind is the zeros and ones. And like, if we want to change something in our reality, if we want to really dive into, like, yeah, we can change something on, like, I can open up my desktop right now and change a bunch of files, move them around, change whatever I want to. But really, the most effective way to get to like the deep core level is to go into the part where the zeros and one, the computer programming, go into the computer programming and change it there. Because the computer programming all the zeros and ones behind this beautiful device that we have is what our subconscious mind actually is. I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah. And so do you think that everyone's subconscious mind or subconscious is actually good and is always driving to better themselves and to get back to oneness, get back to source and love and stuff?
Yeah, it does, because as humans, we're designed to survive. Not just as humans, as being on this three-dimensional planet, we are wired to do whatever to survive at all costs. So while logically it may not make sense to us how attracting the same energy vampires over and over and over again, and things failing for us and things, going wrong all the time and all these things might not make sense for us. Why that is good for us, the subconscious mind, or the whole system, the whole human system. So besides for just the subconscious mind, the whole human system is actually designed to survive at all costs. If you look to the animal kingdom, and even the plant kingdom, we're designed this way. We're part of Mother Earth, and we're actually designed just like animals, because we still are animals, even if we don't think we are. We're just very advanced animals. We're designed to survive at all costs. So our brains, whether it's the subconscious mind or the, usually it's at a subconscious level, are going to do and send cues to us to do whatever it is that is best for survival. So short answer, yes. Our being is always striving to get to what is the best for our highest good, even if it doesn't logically make any sense.
Mm-hmm. But then I suppose what I was just thinking then is like, if it's like just kind of based around you, your subconscious mind, could there be a deeper level, which is like your soul and the God state, where like that's the place of love? Because your subconscious, if you really like, it's really just working to make you survive in this realm. Like you might have to kill someone to survive or whatever, and so your subconscious is making you go against like what naturally, I suppose God would say, don't kill people, or that would be the general rule of thumb. so like your subconscious, there is an element of it not still being at that highest place of love. Do you think? Does that make sense? That's what I'm seeing.
That's an interesting question. So I like to look at the subconscious mind more like a portal to different realms, because the subconscious mind does good things for us too.
Yeah.
It does all kinds of amazing things for us. So I like to look at it like a portal, if that makes sense, into like different realms, because the mind, if we're talking about the mind, it's only one aspect of our existence, of our being. That's a very, very deep question. And I think that that's a question that people can really take from this whole conversation and really reflect on. I'm so sorry for my dog barking, for anybody who can see that, but she wants to talk too. But it's a really good question for people to reflect on and take and like kind of dive into, because our subconscious mind is also where we have dreams, where we sort things, and it's a portal to a deeper aspect of consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And we can also be connected to like the collective subconscious as well, can't we? So we can pick up a lot on other people's like emotions or fears, and particularly now there's a lot of fear going on, and a lot of people are having similar dreams about like negative things happening, or just feeling a lot of the tension that's going on at the minute.
Yeah.
So like in terms of like when you need to just do your own healing first, and then try and deal with the healing of the collective, being a part of the collective as well, would you say?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of goes hand in hand, because we never stop healing. I feel like everything in this human experience on this 3D realm is we're just extensions of source consciousness that want to experience being in 3D consciousness. And so the healing never really stops. So I think that it goes hand in hand. Like for me personally, I know that I've done a lot of my own. Yes, to an extent, you do need to be, emotionally stable in order to help other people. But to an extent also, it is, nothing is really black or white here. Because to an extent also, yes, like helping other people can also, because it's a relationship. If me and you are sitting down and I'm helping you with something, it's a relationship, and I'm growing from helping another person. And so go back to what you were saying about how we kind of channel things through our subconscious mind. Yes, we totally do. That's what I mean by it's a portal. It picks up on everything, literally everything. And it's a portal, and we do channel collective experiences and collective consciousnesses, and it's just a portal to a bigger dimension that's honestly, you know, beyond human. Like, yes, humans have studied all of these things scientifically, but really it's so vast we can't even actually wrap our heads as human beings, no matter who you are, around the, the connection and the expansion and the relation between ourselves and the universe and what's actually happening. It's really fascinating because when you start to like get into like, sometimes I'm not like an expert on this, but sometimes I'll like watch and read things about astronomy and the physics of that, and it's really, we're very much related to our universe
Yeah.
in which we come from on a very scientific level. It's just that people haven't yet, or I don't know if they will ever actually discover the extent of how deeply we are related and connected, and able to kind of wrap our heads around what everything kind of means.
Yeah. No, I've exactly the same. I've been like looking into astrology so much more. And what I've learned is that the different planets, they are the different archetypes, basically, the different archetypes of personality traits we can have. And they say there's like there's 7 main visible planets. So I don't know how many there are actually in astrology, but the sun is like, say, the white light, and then Saturn or Satan is like the dark light, and the sun being Jesus. And the sun shines its light through the different planets and comes down on us, and that is the positive aspects of that archetype. So for Mars, for example, his positive aspects is like drive, action, determination, like get up and go. And then Saturn's light, the dark light, however, can shine his light through Mars, and that can bring out the shadow side or the negative aspect, which is like anger, aggression, like that kind of stuff. And the different planets all kind of cover different areas in our lives, or different ways that we can be, and then they kind of condition our energy. And perhaps, like you're saying, the portal of the subconscious, maybe that's where the energies come from.
Yeah.
Do you subscribe to that too, or have you heard anything like that? Or
It's interesting. Yeah. So I'm more, I don't know a lot about like astrology. I'm more like, I subscribe to all of it, like everything planetary, astronomy too, like the actual science of everything that's going on is like fascinating to me, because it really is, like it really is. I do, in a sense, subscribe to it, because it really is, even though I don't know a lot about it, it really is just all connected. We're all very much, when I say, I believe I mentioned this term earlier, source consciousness, and what all of these things are is just consciousness. Everything is conscious. Everything in our universe, everything in our own being, everything is conscious. So what source consciousness actually is to me personally, and this is not, universal truth, anybody can take and make any meaning of this that they want, but source consciousness to me is just like everything that is conscious, and that is source, and we're all just pieces of it, experiencing our own little world and our own little kind of bubble.
mm-hmm. And do you think that the subconscious portal then is kind of where our angels and like demons might kind of whisper messages in your ear? You know how a lot of people, we do have our guidance, don't we? Our spiritual guidance, and
Yeah.
sometimes you can hear like negative things, and you're like, go away, demons! Like, he's just chatting crap or whatever. So do you think that's where they're
Yeah.
coming from as well, the subconscious then?
Yeah, totally. It's totally all coming because it's like a portal. I feel like the conscious mind is almost like a portal to the 3-dimensional realm.
Mm-hmm.
And the subconscious mind, and this is just my experience of it, is a portal to the rest of the realms, to everything else that there is. And it's pretty cool because it's like, I don't know if you've ever like shamanic journeyed or done anything like that, but when you journey, and even when like beings come into like our realm, it all comes from that portal.
Mm.
If that kind of makes sense, it's really, really fascinating. Or sometimes, like me personally, I'll see like little orbs fly across me. Like, have you ever seen little orbs like in the corner of your eye or like in a video? And that's all that it's consciousness. They're conscious. And I don't know if I'm going like way too mystical here
No, not one
or
bit.
yeah, awesome. So I'm trying to like relate it together. What it is, the little orbs that fly around you, if you've ever kind of experienced that or even seen them on camera, they're just pieces of your consciousness that have like separated from you and gained your own gained their own consciousness, and now they're individual beings, just like we are, you know, pieces of source consciousness who separated from source and gained their own consciousness, and we're individual beings. And so our subconscious mind is where we birth all these things, and you know, sometimes they already exist, and it's just like a portal for all of it. And that's just you know, kind of more of like my perspective in my experience too. I've actually experienced it this way, but it's interesting. And so when we tap into now I'm going to get really deep here with like manifesting whatever we want. This is how we manifest whatever we want in the 3D realm, is when we actually tap into the subconscious portal and dive deep in there. And just like I described about the computer system with the zeros and ones, we just plug in. So I'm going to continue with the metaphor of the computer system. We take a computer programmer and we go behind to where the zeros and ones are, and we plug in whatever code we want. And then when we open the computer, suddenly a new program is installed into our computer, and we can start using it and, you know, doing whatever we want with it. So it's the same thing. We want to just plug in the correct codes into our mind in order to manifest whatever we want. So for example, if I want to manifest wealth and I want to build wealth and live a happy and wealthy life, and I want to be a philanthropist and you know, do all these things, it's just a matter of going into, you know, the correct place, and programming a code that says, you know, wealth building or whatever the code is into the subconscious mind, and thus we create it. We manifest it into our reality. So that's how this whole thing ties in with, we create whatever we want to in this world from the inside out. That's how that all kind of ties in together.
And it's nice as well because like that portal then accesses literally like everything. Like say the Akashic record, you can go there and find the program you want. So it's just like you literally can achieve anything. Like a lot of people can struggle with the belief, or you know, I couldn't do that, I'm too old, or this and that. But to know that you literally have the same access as every single other person who's succeeded in whatever you want to succeed in, you can just go and you've got it all within you. It's really like a nice thing to know.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was thinking with you saying about us being creative beings, and you see the orbs and they're actually part of your consciousness and stuff, I find that so interesting for you to say it that way and for me to be able to picture it that way, because you know, whenever you like cast a spell, or if you get angry or anything, you actually release some of your energy out into the universe, and you can create angels and demons this way, I think, because if you have a really negative reaction to someone, if you send them negative thoughts, I've felt myself snakes and energetic snakes come and bite my head when someone's had a negative thought about me and stuff. And you can have like demons where if you get really mad, loads of emotion behind, you can send an actual, now a new conscious being, a demon, out into the universe that goes and torments that person. And that's again why it's so important to do the inner work, because if you're just sending out demons like no one's business, you're not even aware you're doing it. Like, not only does that kind of, I think it does come back to bite you in the end, doesn't it? Do you get demons back? Like the universe gives you back what you give out, doesn't it? And
I love where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. Because it's so interesting. Yes, you're absolutely right. We do intention. And sometimes we don't realize what our intentions are. Sometimes we'll think that we didn't put out an intention when we did. But intention is what creates. We can literally birth life in, you know, not in physical form, but in energetic form, in the form of in the astral realm or in the conscious realm, because it's all just consciousness. We literally can birth life just from an intention. So, for example, if I am really, really angry from whatever unresolved trauma or whatever the case may be, just really angry. And in the pit of, in the core of my anger is hatred, just because I'm so angry that it has literally transmuted into the consciousness of hatred. And then I spew that out word. I'm setting an intention. That's what I'm doing. And we actually create beings. We create you know, these so-called I don't like to put labels on what they're called, but for lack of a better term, the demons or the angels or the you know, the little orbs that fly around us. They're you know, a little bit different than you know, actual astral beings. But yes, we create them, we birth them. And it's interesting because when you get to a certain point of where you've done so much work on yourself, and you've grown and expanded and come to an understanding of such a deep and profound way that you even can be, you're even in control of that, of creating you know, beings with your intention. When you get to this point, you can actually set a tone or attune. I like to just call it attune your own energy field, so that whatever you want and whatever you don't want can either come in or not come into your energy fields. So, like, for example, my energy field, I've evolved, you know, in my own personal practices, in my own personal you know, life. I've just evolved to where, like, there are certain people, there are certain beings, there are certain situations, there are certain things, there are certain vibrations that literally cannot enter my energy field, because the minute that they enter my energy field, if they do, their energy, their vibration will actually be transmuted to a higher vibration, because I've attuned my energy field that way. And we can all get to that point. And we don't think that we're capable of it. This is the problem in society in general, is that we don't understand the work that it takes, and we don't think that we're capable of it. But it's actually a lot simpler than people think that it really is to attune your vibration. It's simply about working with your own vibration and keeping it at a steady, like, if let's say I'm on a really, really high vibration of bliss, I want to, no matter what, keep myself on a vibration of bliss, so that anything else that is not of a vibration of bliss cannot enter my energy field without being transmuted. I know it's a lot. I just said a lot there, but I hope that I explained that well.
Yeah, definitely. So, because I do gigs, I mean, I found that since I started eating better, it really helped with my vibration. Like, I'm like vegan, I'm raw vegan as well. So every time I do that, I've cut out like alcohol and sugar and stuff. And honestly, even just the food situation has helped me vibrate so much. And I know there's other things like getting rid of the trauma, getting rid of the negative energy, that can lift your vibration as well and stuff. But I find still, I'll go and do a gig in like my local bar, and they eat meat there and they drink alcohol there, and I feel instantly these things climbing on my head and stuff. So there's some part of me that's still vibrating low enough to be able to let them come on. And then when they're there, I've had one before, it was a while ago, but it was stuck on my head for about 6 weeks or something. This thing was on my head, and I used to get angry at it, say, get off my head like this. But my anger was only feeding it the anger energy and keeping myself in that low vibration. And I didn't believe I could overcome it because it was still there. So I couldn't get myself out of this rut, basically. So do you actually, like, is it like, say if I was eating well and then I miss a meal, that can lower my vibration enough for me to then like pick that up and that gig that night? Or is it literally like, it's not about like missing a meal, you have to literally I don't know, like this, it's a lifestyle type thing, and does your vibration really fluctuate really easily, or is it just like stay on a high level and I've just got to do more work to be higher?
It can fluctuate, absolutely. Like I personally, I still fluctuate sometimes, you know, I'm nowhere near perfect. And I can fluctuate to a state where I'm a little bit angry, and then, you know, all of a sudden, um, I open up
Mm,
the the opportunity for anything of that vibration to come in.
mm,
But I can close the opportunity when I work with my own energy. But the key, it can be a bit of a challenge for some people, just because, like you said, like you got angry because you felt this thing on your head, and you're like, oh, just get off me, and you fed it that anger, and that's what it wanted. But had you, let's say, like, raised your vibration instead, it would have been to a point where it can no longer fit in your energy field.
yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about, like, when you have truly transformed something, um you'll start to see, like, if for anybody out there who's transforming anything in their lives at all, you'll start to see, like, certain things fall out of your life. Like, for example, for me, there was a time in my life, it was like a point in my life where literally everybody and everything that I have ever known fell right out of my life. And it was like, totally, it happened in the most chaotic way, but it was because the people literally couldn't fit in my vibrational field anymore.
Mm,
Like, everything that I had surrounded myself, the reality that I had created, you know, a long time before that, was just like dying because it couldn't fit into my vibrational field. It's like, if you ever, and I'll put this in a really practical sense, like if you ever talk to somebody, if you're talking to somebody of kind of like maybe a little bit of a lower vibration, and you're not matching them at their vibration, it's almost like they get really off put. You know, they get really just off put by you, and they don't understand the language that you're speaking, because vibration is just literally language.
right.
So once they don't understand the language that you're speaking, they'll just like go the other way, because they don't understand the language. Like, they can't be in your vibrational field anymore if they're not. If I'm speaking Chinese to you, and you're speaking English, and we're not speaking the same language, we can't continue to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the same thing with vibration, and what we attract and what we repel. This is how we kind of work with a lot of times we'll unknowingly start to speak that same language as the other person, or the other, you know, in your case, it's a being. But I'm just going to say people for, you know, for the
Yeah.
purpose of just making this really practical for people. But a lot of times we'll like, you'll start speaking Chinese to me, and I'll start speaking Chinese back to you, instead of just like, no, I want to speak English right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to speak. And you're either going to speak English back to me, or we can just not have a conversation.
Mm,
If that kind of makes sense. So it's literally the same with vibration.
yeah. So what tips do you have to like keep your vibe high then?
Just, you know, speak whatever language you want to speak. You know, going back to that whole analogy, or that whole metaphor, keeping your, you know, there's a lot to it, because it's a lot of, first of all, I would say, get a coach, a healer, somebody who can help you to raise that vibration, so that you can accomplish whatever you want. Because it doesn't matter who it is. Some of the most elite people, and the most amazing people that accomplish so many things, have somebody else that's helping them with that, and serving them and supporting them in that way. So it's extremely important to be supported, in the way that you need to be supported. And that goes for people, your environment, everything. You know, I love how you mentioned earlier eating high vibrational foods, because that will definitely keep your vibration high. And also speaking, like, going back to the metaphor of language, speaking whatever language that you want to speak. So again, if like I want to speak English and you want to speak Chinese to me, and I don't feel like speaking Chinese, don't speak Chinese. You know, vibrationally.
Mm,
Vibrationally, don't be on a vibration that you don't want to be on just to meet your environment. And we do this sometimes unknowingly, and it's because we need to socially survive. And so our being, literally, this is where the subconscious mind tries to protect us from, being socially rejected, is that the subconscious mind will actually, until we catch it, until we bring it to consciousness and surface it, will actually automatically lower our vibration a lot of times to be able to meet other people where they're at. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep our, even though our subconscious mind is trying to protect us, we actually want to just keep our vibration where we want it to be, so that we can create. And this is a part of creating whatever you want to in this world. And there's so many things like high vibrational music, just high vibrational books, reading, and always the intention also is so powerful to creating whatever you want to in yourself, and keeping your vibration high, because the intention of constantly wanting to evolve and seeking evolution will bring that into your reality, just by simply putting the intention out there. So there's so much more I could say about it, but basically just like a really simple answer is just that, is just really be aware of your intention, be aware of what you're putting out there, be aware of if you're meeting somebody at a lower vibration or not.
Yeah. And just trying to be the person that you want to be. And I found crystals have helped me as well. But again, I don't know the extent of it, like whether they help on a massive scale, whether they're just kind of really good like pocket tools or whatever. But I have found certain crystals have really helped like protect me or raise my vibration and things like that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So crystals too, they're all part of Earth, and our planet is conscious. So if you pick up a crystal, or even, I like to get my stuff from like directly outside. This way I have a personal connection with it. But if you feel it and it feels good to you, and if it feels like it's of a high vibration, and if it makes you feel more connected to the planet, I'm all about connecting to the planet. That's why, my name is Raven of Gaia. Gaia is Earth, and I'm of Earth. So totally, I would also say, in order to raise your vibration and create whatever reality that you want to, definitely connect with things such as crystals that are of this planet or of the Earth, and that you can literally just connect your energy to it. That's beautiful. I love that.
Because they're called like crystals as well, so I think they've got like a really high vibrational, like almost Christ-like energy. They are like the Christ of the stone world or something, of the mineral world.
That's awesome.
And so same thing with the vibration thing then, just so the viewers and people listening know that when we're talking about raising our vibration, it's also about shifting out of it. There's like this whole fear versus love, isn't there? And I think at the minute everyone's trying to, a lot of spiritual people are trying to ascend, they're trying to shift out of this fear-based mentality. It's like the lower three chakras, and they're trying to shift up and vibrate now in the place of love being the heart chakra and the earth being the heart chakra of the universal man. And so we're all trying to like live from our heart chakra and higher if possible. And so the different techniques that we're talking about in terms of raising your vibration is basically like whether you're vibrating in a lower, denser vibration of fear, or whether you're vibrating in a higher one of love. And so if we're wanting to shift into love and see more love in the world and change the world and bring like the golden age, bring like heaven on earth, and bring a nicer earth to be in for everyone, then all these different tips are all like really good at helping. And would you say as well, Raven, that if you've got negative, like subconscious things, if you've got baggage, emotional baggage still, those things can actually weigh you down and keep your vibration lower?
They can, but we do also, we want to, here's the tricky part. This is what comes to mind in all of what you just said. We don't ever want to suppress anything also at the same time, because sometimes, wanting to do away with everything and getting caught in the shadow work trap can also lower our vibration. And this is something that a lot of people miss. I literally just wrote an article on my website, on the blog on my website. It's ravenofgaia.com. If you guys want to check it out, I talk about some very abstract things, but also I make them very practical. But I literally just wrote an article about how we need to actually be honoring our shadow side more. And we need to be embracing our shadow side more, because we are living in a realm of duality. We're living in the realm of polarity here on Earth, which is why we experience the shadows, which is why we experience the so-called bad things, and which is why we experience things of a high vibration and things of a lower vibration. And the way I like to look at it is that we need to be honoring, because the root chakra has everything to do with the primal instincts. And the crown chakra, and I mentioned this in the article, it's called, if you guys want to check it out, it's called something about, I don't remember the exact name, but overcoming guilt is the key word that you want to look for. And the crown chakra is tied to the cosmic consciousness, and we want to be honoring both polarities. They're just polarities, like we're the same being, but one is the primal side and one is the cosmic side. And a lot of our shadows come from the primal side, is where our kind of and I describe it more in depth in the article, but our shadows kind of almost live there sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with the primal side. It's just that, we're beings of polarity, and we want to be, and this is key to raising vibration also, is that we want to be honoring both. And so many people just think that just doing away with all the shadows is, and that's impossible in this realm. It's impossible in this realm. Like, we all have a dark side, we all have a light side, and we're taught in society that the shadows are wrong, and that we should do away with them, and that we should continue, even in the kind of spirituality that we believe in, we're still taught this, because it's been embedded in our DNA that, anything bad, quote unquote, is wrong, and, we shouldn't, be in our shadows at all. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because while we do want to evolve and continue to work towards a higher way of being, we also want to love both polarities of ourselves and embrace them. And so I always like to tell my shadow self how much I love her too, and how it's okay to be in your shadows, and it's okay to do things sometimes that, and this is going to sound really maybe wacky to some people, but it's okay to make mistakes, and sometimes get angry, and sometimes, be human. It's a part of the human experience, and it's okay to sometimes be reacting from the traumas, and that it's okay. So we want to really, and I'm actually currently working on this with my client, is I have a client who carries a lot of guilt. She just carries so much guilt because her shadow side has been condemned for so long, and it lowers her vibration because she's living through guilt of everything that is, quote unquote, wrong with her. And so what we're working on is integrating the shadow self with the higher self, with the cosmic self, with the infinite self that's connected to infinite intelligence. And we're integrating the two, and it's such a beautiful process, because you really get to see a human being just blossom from just simply integrating the two and doing the deep work, and basically just telling your shadow self that it's okay to exist. And not shunning, because it is an aspect of ourselves. And when we tell our shadow self that it's not okay to exist, we're telling a part of ourselves. And I mean, think about that. That's like literally you're telling a part of yourself. That's like telling your arm or your body that it's not okay to have an arm. It's the same thing with our shadow self and our light self. So yeah, that is currently what I'm getting into right now, is kind of helping people a lot with the integration of the two. It's what's been my deepest passion for, I think, the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying, because one of the things I've struggled with, and it's exactly that, it must be what's called the shadow self trap then, is just like really wanting rid of things, but also struggling to have like any kind of self-love, or really devaluating what I feel about myself when you're aware of so much crap you've got under the surface, really questioning like, God, am I a nice person? Am I good? Or, you know, is there actually something like inherently wrong with me that I didn't know? And it's not it, like you say, it lowers your vibration. It's not a good place to be in. And one of the questions I was going to ask is, how do you find like self-love when you're in those moments of like you're not happy with yourself, there's so much you want to change? Once you become aware of that, like where do you find the kind of positivity in that, like, and find the self-love?
Mm. So it's important to ask yourself, like, why you're not happy with yourself, first of all. What it's about, where that's coming from, and then sometimes it's different for everybody, but sometimes it can be as simple as positive affirmations or mantras.
Mm.
Reinstilling in yourself that you are a divine being, and that you are worthy of whatever it is that you want, and that you love yourself, and really with conviction, and with transmitting that energy to yourself. I like to, I used to, I don't really do this as much as anymore because I don't need to, but I used to have to say a lot of things to myself in the mirror, affirming that I am happy with myself, and that I am whole, and that there's not necessarily any fragmentation there, or anything missing. Because we're taught that we have to be a certain way, and that's where that comes from a lot of times for a lot of people, is that so many of us are taught that there's something wrong with us, from a very well-meaning society, or from very well-meaning parents. But we pick up, we receive certain things as that there's something wrong with us, and there really is not. There is no I don't necessarily believe in right or wrong. Everything just kind of is, and everything is just kind of it just is. Like I always like to look to the animal kingdom for things. If you look to the animal kingdom, I'll give you an example. I just moved to, I'm from the United States, and I just moved to Colorado, and there's literally a bear in the neighborhood that ate my neighbor's chicken. And, the bear doesn't think that that's wrong.
Mm.
Um, we as human beings, we see, okay, the bear ate the neighbor's chicken. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the bear was hungry and wanted to survive. So it's the same thing with us people. We just perceive things as right and wrong, um, just based off of like our morality that we created as human beings. Which I'm not saying that, definitely we should all have a sense of morality, and we should all have values in place, and things, like that. But this is really, everything that I'm saying is more to just get people to just kind of perceive things, and look at things from a little bit of a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Um, so one of the things that I was thinking when you're talking about like embracing your shadow self and embracing both sides is, I was wondering whether it might be a bit of like a journey, because obviously the first thing that you do is like you realize it's there. You start thinking, oh no, what is this? Like, do I really have like these negative thoughts and intentions sometimes? Is this really a part of me? And obviously you have to come to accepting, yes it is, because only through acceptance and just like owning yourself, and like you say, take responsibility for your own emotions and your own self, only then can you start to like grow and develop and, like you say, integrate it. But then do you think you might come to a point eventually down the line where you've embraced your shadow self, you've integrated it, you've appreciated it for what it does, but it doesn't serve you anymore? So even though it's like you need to honor it, is there a point where you just do let it go, because like those traits, they were survival back in the day, back when you was younger, but now they're just holding you back, they're keeping you in fear and things like that? And I would love to know what your thoughts are, and how you'd still honor that and still embrace it, or do you actually just eventually say, you know what, you've served me so well, give it a little hug and say, will you please sit down now? That's it now, I don't want any more off you.
Yeah, and that's what you just said there. I love that, because that is totally how to embrace it. You don't have to like live in your shadow self. You can totally just like give your shadow self a hug and be like, okay, sit down now. I really don't need you to like be driving the car here. I want to drive the car,
Yeah.
the light self. But yeah, there's different aspects to our shadow self, and sometimes aspects we outgrow certain aspects of our shadow self, and we have to say, you know what, you are an aspect of the shadow self, but I now want to transmute you. So we never actually want to tell our shadow self like go away forever and don't come back. We want to transmute, because it's energy. At the end of the day, our shadow self, our light, or higher self, or light self, whatever you want to call it, it's all energy. And so energy, we can't get rid of energy. And when people try to do that, they suppress things, and that's when they get stuck in their body and stuff. So we don't actually want to do that. We actually just want to transmute. So if there's a certain thing that is no longer serving us, that is of the shadow self, we want to just help that aspect of the self evolve into a light being, into the higher self, and to integrate it with the higher self.
Right.
Rather than just like go, or we can just do what you just said, like, okay, you're awesome, I love you, but you know, I need you to let me drive the car. I need you to let me be in charge here, because this is what I want to be in. Like literally, like you could totally just talk to yourself. You know, like I literally do that, like with some of my clients, like talk to your shadow self and your light self as if they're two different people, but they're really the same person. And this is how the beautiful thing is, that this is how to integrate the two aspects of the self, is when you talk to the two aspects of the self as if they're two different people, they actually start to merge and have a relationship with each other. And it all is happening energetically and subconsciously, and so this is a great tool. Actually, I love that you brought this up, because it's a great tool for people to take away from this, is just to start talking to your shadow self and start talking to your light self. And you can kind of be the mediator, step outside and remember how I said earlier, remove your sense of self from yourself, and just be the observer, or the puppet master, if you will, of the two. And it's a great way to be in complete control of your internal state, and thus create whatever you want to in the world.
That's a really good idea. I might have to try that, because I've talked to my shadow self just in the way of just saying like, go away, like I don't like this part of you, like praying to God, please just get rid of this part of me, I don't want this part of me anymore. And I suppose even part of my journey is to like face it and like heal it and stuff. But one of the things I was going to ask you, because I'm doing this journey myself at the minute and I'm aware of different things, but I met a really beautiful woman recently, and she told me she's just basically faced all the demons, she's come out the other side, she's had like an amazing like awakening and stuff, and she was saying now she kind of like dances with her shadow self, it's her friend, she thinks it's kick-ass, she thinks it's amazing. But she said to me like, I need to face mine, I need to face my pain, and I wasn't really sure how to do that. Do I need to go into like my room for a night, and do I write down all the things that like I secretly feel, and then do I cry about them, or do I like convince myself that it's okay to feel that way? Like what do you actually do to release the energy and uncondition yourself and change that coding so that it's rewired? Or is it just affirming things every day? Is it just having the intention and then the universe will send you these things and eventually it happens? Like, is it all of those things? What is it?
It's like totally all of the above. I love that you mentioned writing though, because I'm a huge advocate for writing. I love writing. Writing is a great way to help us process everything internally.
Yeah.
The work that I do with, like, I do this kind of work one-on-one with my clients, but anybody who's listening can really do this with themselves if they want also, is take two separate sheets of paper And right on one side is your shadow self, and on the other side is your higher self. And write the two very honestly. And this is why sometimes a lot of people need another person to hold space for them, because it's a very deep and painful work. Like, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. It is deep and painful work. But if you take one side of the paper and write all of your shadows, and then the other side, all of the aspects, so you're writing characteristics for the both. That is when you can really start to do the work of giving love to both sides. And again, it's really, really painful, but that's just one way, that's one modality that I like to personally do it with my clients. I would, I would definitely say to write about anything that anybody, who's listening here feels called to write about, in terms of like starting, like where to start, embracing the shadow self. It's very painful. It is very painful. A lot of people don't want to do it. And a lot of people do tell their shadow self like to just go away. And again, that, that has the opposite effect, because then our shadow self feels rejected. And we don't ever want to make ourselves feel rejected for anything. So I would definitely say, I know that was a long answer, but to shorten it, I would definitely say get out a piece of paper, a journal, and just start journaling about everything. Be very real with yourself, very honest with yourself, without being afraid. And people can even take this further and set an intention before writing, to just not be afraid to, that it's okay. And, if you guys are going to do this at home, you can even re-listen to this episode to kind of give you a little bit more courage and inspiration, and just know that I am holding space for all of you, anybody who chooses to do this, that it is okay to face your shadows. And it's totally, our brains might tell us that we're, have this reaction that it's not safe, but it is actually very safe, and it is very much okay to just embrace all of ourselves. So I hope that answers your question there.
Defo, and I love the long answers as well. You don't need to apologise for the long answers.
Oh, okay, good.
And something interesting I found when you're saying about setting the intention is there's a new moon, I think last week or something, and this is another thing that woman had told me, is that the moon is one of the planets that can help you deal with emotions and subconscious and things like that. And so the moon's a really great planet or like a goddess to call upon, to ask her for help when you're trying to if she can guide you through like your subconscious and what you need to work on and things like that. And so on the new moon, I wrote down the intentions I wanted to set. I wrote down what I wanted to release and let go of. And I suppose they were my shadow, but maybe I shouldn't have worded it as I want to get rid of these or let go of these things, and maybe just wrote down that these are part of me, this is what I've noticed. But then try to set the intention, this is what I want to kind of like overcome, this is what I want to bring in replacement for it. And on the different days as well, each of the days, the 7 days, they represent the 7 planets. And so on a Thursday, for example, that's like Thor's day or the planet Jupiter. So then that's real expansion. So if you was to set your intentions on a Thursday or do spells on a Thursday to help you bring in these like new energies or whatever, then Thursday is a good day, or Monday is moon day. So to do your intentions on Monday with the moon and asking for the help of the planets and stuff, that can really help as well. And so yeah, like using the universe and to help bring it all into it can be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely important to use whatever it is that you feel connected to. So without following any rules, because those are all kind of rules, and you can follow them if you want.
Yeah.
But I always like to tell people, like, it's very important to actually feel connected to whatever it is that you are using. So if you're using Thursday to like manifest things and do some work, if you don't actually feel connected to that day, I would not say to use it. If you don't actually feel connected to the energy of the moon and you don't actually feel drawn to work with that, I would not say to use it just because you're told to use it. I would say, sometimes, and this is how far I go with this personally in my own life, is that sometimes I'll feel connected to like something really weird that makes no sense. Um, like a time that's really weird and energy that's really weird, and I'll just use that energy or that time or that object. Sometimes it'll be like an object, like a certain desk to write on. And I'll
Yeah.
just like use that because that's what I feel connected to.
Yeah.
And so it's important also to use whatever we feel drawn to, because there's so much in like the, especially in the more metaphysical kind of practices of spirituality. There's so many people that say, well, use this color candle to manifest, like use a green candle to manifest money, or use, this kind of thing to manifest that kind of thing. But then the problem with that is, it's great if that's something you feel drawn to, again, but if you're just doing it because somebody else told you to, that's what you're supposed to do, you're just going by a rule. You're not going by so I would say that yes, definitely all of those things can help, but it's important to feel connected to whatever it is that we're using to manifest or to get rid of. And something you mentioned too that I want to touch on is that the beautiful thing about, you had said that you shouldn't have wrote that you want to get rid of a certain thing of your shadow aspect. And while we want to find a happy balance between like embracing ourselves fully, and also like if something is not serving us, to kind of transmute it and to say, okay, now it's time for you to evolve. So for example, if there's a certain part of, like, if let's say that I'm a very angry person and I don't like my anger. And that's a part of my shadow self. And I don't like my anger and I don't want it to be there. I genuinely don't want it to be there anymore. It's not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
That's okay if something is not serving us anymore. But what we want to do is say, hey, listen, sit down and have a talk with it. Like you would, any human being. Say, hey, listen, I think that it's time for you to evolve past this. I think that it's time for me to teach you how to be your higher self and how you can actually transform from anger into whatever the opposite of anger is. So usually that's passion. So we want to also think of like, what is the opposite of, whenever we want a certain aspect of our shadow self to be transmuted, we also want to think of what is the opposite of that. So, okay, I'm a really angry person, and I would like to transmute that into passion. So we want to actually sit down and show our shadow self how we can transmute it into passion, and how we can evolve past that angry stage, even if we're doing work with like the moon, or whatever we feel drawn to, and we're just writing down, like, hey, I want to get rid of these things. We want to do it in a way that's conscious and aware of, like, we're not condemning that aspect of ourselves. We're just simply asking it, requesting that it transmutes because it's no longer serving us. And there's a huge difference between the way, it's all about the intention and the way you go about things.
That's very nice. And also, when you're saying about like what you're drawn to in terms of what could help you, is just following your intuition, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's so important, intuition versus following rules. If something makes no sense but you're still drawn to it anyway, follow that. It's crazy how many things have made no sense in my life, that I followed anyway, just because I felt called to it. And usually when I follow what I feel called to, I'm always right 100% of the time.
Yeah. And you often discover like brand new things when you do that, as opposed to just doing the same old.
Yeah.
So, if you was like if I was to do that, setting my intentions and writing down, these parts of me that I want to transmute now, like, I don't wake up the next day with it done. I've found myself being really impatient, and like a week later, I'm still no better. But I've noticed real subtle small things, but I'm just still not there. It's definitely just a process, isn't it? It takes time, doesn't it? And you have to keep repeating the writing it down and keep repeating it, or is it just then you set the intention and then you have to just be trying to consciously choose in every moment how you want to behave next?
I love that question. That is so deep. Yes, you have to just constantly, your ability to manifest things into your reality will be determined by, how conscious you are and how aware you are of all these things. So yeah, you're going to have to like do things over and over and over again. If you set an intention and then take it back by being impatient, or take it back by a little slight disbelief that's even maybe not even conscious. Maybe it's totally subconscious, but there's a slight disbelief there. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how many times I've done that, where there's been like the slightest disbelief that I can actually make it happen. And I literally take the intention back, and then I have to do the work to manifest over again. And, it's like the cycle that we do with ourselves. But literally, yes, being very conscious, highly aware, very real with yourself. So I would say honesty, if we want to apply principles to this, honesty with the self, awareness, just being able to feel everything and allowing yourself permission to feel. So that's 3 different, principles that we can apply to this to kind of help us out with that. Those are all like the recipes for actual manifestation if we actually want to, because sometimes just setting an intention, if we're not going about it the right way, just setting an intention, we want to be projecting all of our energy towards what we want. We don't want to just project the intention and then, battling with ourselves, because then our energy is somewhere else.
Yeah.
So when our energy is somewhere else, of course we're taking away, now it's taking more time for that thing to manifest because our energy is, over here somewhere else, and, our intentions here. We want all of our energy to be on that thing, if that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think the saying is like where consciousness goes, energy flows, or something. So long as you're like staying with your intentions and believing it, I suppose, then you're just staying open to receiving it, and you're staying on that same vibration to receive it back, as opposed to then changing and then you're like kind of putting your own blocks in your way again and stuff.
Yes, and I love that you mentioned receiving, because being open to receiving is key to any kind of manifestation, anything we want to create out there in the world. Being open to receiving it. So when there's any slight disbelief, when there's impatience, we actually close off our receptiveness to it. So it might be trying to come in energetically, but we can't even feel it because we just blocked ourselves. So I love that you mentioned that. Yeah. Being open to project our energy and then receive, that's what I like to call just a masculine and feminine balance there, because the masculine projects and the feminine receives. So we want to make sure that we're actually totally balanced in both. So there's actually a recipe. There's a total, we just went over the whole recipe of what it takes to actually really manifest.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said all that. I definitely needed to hear all that, especially about the receiving and like just not getting in your own way, because it seems to just be what I always seem to do in life, is just get in my own way. And you just need to step out your own way, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah, so many people do. So many, me too sometimes. Like, I'm not a perfect human being. I just, I always I always make an effort to evolve. But yeah, we all have times in our lives, when we just need to step out of our own way. And if we did step out of our own way, we could have so much more. But another recipe to another part of the recipe to manifestation is just really stepping out of your own way completely. Yes.
Yeah. Something that I'd like to ask you is, I had like an astrology reading recently, and she was saying that I've got a lot of kind of ancestral stuff to be working through this lifetime, as well as my own stuff. What is like ancestral kind of baggage and trauma, and how did it end up like coming to me? How does it come through like the family line or whatever to land in someone's lap where you're then dealing with ancestral trauma? What is that?
I love that question. It's in your DNA. It's all in your body. It's in your
Right.
DNA, it's in your body, it's in the field, the energetic field even. It's everywhere. Because timelines are just like if I do something in this timeline, I'm creating a ripple effect. I'm creating a cause for something. And so it'll ripple through timelines by being in your DNA, by the energetic field, by just being there. It already happened. And so timelines in this three-dimensional realm are, when we're talking about energy and frequency and things like that, totally different rules apply to timelines. But yeah, it's in your body, it's in your DNA, it's in your body, it's in your wiring.
Hmm. And so would that be like, say, family issues, like my grandma went through something and then so I'm feeling that same loss as if like that she did, or is it not quite as like specific as that? Is it more kind of like me as a like a white female or whatever, like whatever goes on in the past with white females and like, not being able to like vote or suppression and things like that, and then me feeling that same way in my life? Or is it all of those things?
It's all of those things, yeah. Ancestral trauma really is all of those things. It's everything affects us, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
So everything, whether it's good things that happen in the world or trauma that happens in the world, it all affects us. And so, yeah, it is totally all of the above. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're saying about the good things or the trauma things in the world, I've just noticed this whole conversation, all I've been going on about is the negative side of like the subconscious and things that go on in the world. And I suppose it's just because of where I'm at, and it's like we were saying, you view the world from where you are, you're having your conversations from where you are, and I'm obviously just trying to face all that at the minute and come to terms with it all. But sorry if it's
Yeah,
been
but it's
if
beautiful
it's
that
been
you noticed
negative.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful that you noticed that and you just became aware of it just now. Because yes, it is all projection. I noticed it. I picked it up right away. But it's beautiful that you noticed it, and that's the beauty of relationships. Like going back to what you were saying earlier about the importance of relationships and people reflecting things to each other. And
Hmm.
this is just a prime example of that, of how we reflect things to each other. Is we have a conversation, and all of a sudden you're listening and taking in my perspective, and you're realizing your own. Oh shit, like I am totally being negative here, and realizing that. So it's a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful opportunity for you personally and for anybody who's listening to realize where they're kind of coming from in this whole conversation, in this whole podcast episode,
Mm.
where they're kind of coming from in terms of perspective, how they are perceiving the thoughts, being aware of the thoughts that are coming up when you're listening to a podcast like this too is so can definitely reflect a lot for you. Like, are you questioning a lot of things about like the negative aspects of all of this, or are you questioning a lot of the things about the positive, or are you seeing both? All of that, yes, all of that can reflect so much to you, so that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And I remember you saying actually when we had our first chat before this, you were saying that just your energy in itself can help people like kind of awaken to like themselves or realize. And it's almost like your energy is coded from like source. You were always here, designed and coded to help people see these parts of themselves that they might not see.
Yeah, it is coded. We're all just codes. We're all just like going back to what I said earlier, like the computer program who goes into the zeros and ones and rearranges everything. It's all code.
Yeah.
We're all just arranged exactly like computers, like the zeros and ones, and we can rearrange the code at any time. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it, or getting the right person to hold space for you. There's so many people out there that can hold space for you that are talented in it. Yeah, we're all code. We're all we can recode things ourselves, when we're manifesting things and we're working with, for example, the energy of the moon, and setting an intention and intentionally projecting all of our energy at that. That's all coding things.
Mm-hmm.
It's all sending the universe code. Like if we send mudras into mudras, or the hand kind of signals, that's all code. Light language is all code. There's so many different words, regular old conversation, regular words in plain English or whatever language you speak. That's all code also as well. So it's all, yeah, all code.
And the last question I was going to ask you then is about, like, do you kind of subscribe to soul contracts? And do you think that, like, there's certain aspects that you're not allowed to heal yet because, like, you made a contract, you need to still be this person or this way? Or do you think that we're not tied down like that? Like, we really can just heal anything we want to at any time. There's no limitations on it.
I love that question. So here's my perspective. If we believe that we're in a soul contract that we're not allowed to heal from yet, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And if we believe that we're not in a soul contract and we can actually heal from whatever we want to and do whatever we want with it, and that, you know, we are welcome to leave that whenever and wherever we can, that's also the truth. There's actually, with that question, there is no absolute truth at all. It is literally all how we perceive it. And that's the beauty of the way we're wired. So many people believe in these soul contracts, and I'm not doubting that they're real. They, you know, yes, they believe in past lifetimes. They believe that there are soul contracts. But if a person believes that they're bound to something, or even believes that it is, like, is that belief serving you? And if it is not serving you, you can change the belief at any moment. So for example, if you're a person who's experiencing a soul contract with a person who's draining your energy, and, you know, I had this experience with a person, I wasn't the person that believed this, but I had a friend who believed that she was in a soul contract with me. And she created the relationship to be like this whole, it was this big drama all the time. And it was just like, I was just kind of there, you know, being my laid back self. I wasn't actually draining any of her energy, but she, you know, made it out to be that, you know, because she felt very connected to me. And maybe, yes, maybe she remembered me from a different lifetime and maybe things happened. However, we don't have to be tied down to anything that we don't want to be. So if a belief is, the way I'm going to answer this is this. If a belief is not serving you, if you believe that you are tied down to the soul contract and that you can't break it, and you want out of that soul contract because it's not serving you anymore, all you have to do is walk away. It doesn't have to be a belief that you feed into. And we can, the beauty of it is that we can literally change beliefs at any given moment, just like we change our clothes. We can change beliefs and take on new things, and that's where evolution comes also, is when we just play around with beliefs and try them on like hats, you know, just play around with them. See what works, what doesn't, what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy. We're never bound to anything that we don't want to be bound to.
That is so awesome. So if people wanted to, like, come to you for help then, because you obviously know your stuff, and you're, like, obviously we got all Zoom and stuff like that, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can do help online, can't you?
Yes. So are you asking if people want to find me?
Yeah, where would we find you?
Yeah, awesome. So the best way to find me is if you go to Facebook and you search Raven of Gaia. I'm the only Raven of Gaia on Facebook. So yeah, Raven of Gaia, best ways to message me. I'm fairly quick to respond. I usually respond within 24 hours. Or if you want to read like my blog, I have an awesome blog. I talk about some very interesting topics where I tie in all of the practical things that you can apply to your practical reality in a way that's deep. Very deep, just like this conversation, only in the form of a blog. So you can check out ravenofgaia.com.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check out that blog myself. I feel like there's going to be a lot of stuff that could help me at the minute as well. So Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we'll put your links in the description of the YouTube video anyway, so that people can just find you dead easy. But I just wanted to say, like, honestly, thanks so much for coming on and chatting to us. Like, you've just been so amazing. Like, all your answers
Thank you.
have been so informative and stuff. I know that it's going to help me so much on my journey with where I'm at, and I know it's going to help so many of our listeners as well. And yeah, like, help us just heal and bring about like a better place for everyone to live in. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for having me.
No worries. So Alkalise Realize family, thanks for tuning in. Have a check out of all the videos on this channel, all different types of really informative stuff, all about health, spirituality, self-development, everything. So yeah, thanks so much and have an awesome week. See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.